This is the public hearing of the City Council Committee on Transportation and Public Utilities. The purpose of this public hearing is to hear testimony on Bill number 180554. I recognize the presence of a quorum with committee members. The members of the committee who are in attendance are Councilman Alan Dom, Councilman Mark Squilla, Councilman Al Tackenberger. Do any members of the committee have any opening remarks? The clerk will now read the title of the bill.
Amending Title 13 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Water and Sewer by amending Section 13-306 entitled Water Pipe Laid by Property Owners, and by amending Section 13-406 entitled Sewers Constructed by Property Owners, by revising certain provisions to allow for private water and sewer services to be constructed to serve units in planned communities and condominiums, all under certain terms and conditions.
The clerk will please read the name of the first witness to testify on this bill.
Deborah McCarty and James Moransky.
Good afternoon. That's ladies first. Will you please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony?
Yes, Deborah McCarty, Water Commissioner. And good afternoon, Chairman Johnson and other members of the Committee on Transportation and Public Utilities. As you know, I'm Deborah McCarty, the Water Department Commissioner, and I'm here to testify on Bill number 180554, which authorizes the construction of private water and sewer infrastructure on private property for certain developments. Councilman Johnson introduced this bill on the Council's President's behalf on May 24th, 2018. In general, the Water Department is strongly opposed to private water and sewer infrastructure serving multiple customers. It is a practice that was permitted in the past and for which we and our customers pay a steep price today. While there is a difference between private water sewer infrastructure on private property, which this bill addresses, and private water sewer in the public right-of-way, the downsides are significant and can affect any customer connected to private infrastructure. First, let me address private infrastructure in the public right-of-way. I will assume that many, if not all of you, have received at least one complaint from your constituents and your customers, and our customers, about being connected to a private water main or sewer. When a main or sewer is private, it means that it is not owned or maintained by the city. Instead, the pipe is owned by each of the connected property owners. Often, the private water main or sewer was not constructed to PWD standards and is prone to failure. Because private water infrastructure is not owned by the city, repair or cleaning is left to the connected property owners. When the community is unable to coordinate a fix, PWD will repair or clean the water main or sewer, then bill and lien the connected property owners equally to cover the cost. If a homeowner is not aware that he or she is connected to private infrastructure, you can imagine the frustration he or she feels when the bill or lien notice arrives in the mail. While problems sometimes take years or decades to surface, we are dealing with these legacy problems today. As for allowing private water mains and sewers on private property, the Water Department's position that if units in a development front a street with public water and or sewer service, the units must individually connect to that public infrastructure. We require individual connections for several reasons, all of which benefit the customer now and in the future. One, individual connections create a billing and service relationship between the unit owner and the city. If the customer becomes delinquent, Water Department, Water Revenue Bureau has a remedy against the individual unit. If a condo association becomes delinquent and there was one connection to the entire development, all 20 or 30 or 50 or so units become subject to shutoff. Additionally, large meters on a large connection lead to lost revenue for the city. These large meters, unfortunately, won't register a toilet flush, but smaller individuals will. Two, the owner association probably does not have the expertise to manage all of the maintenance that is required of large-scale water and sewer infrastructure. PWD does. These maintenance requirements include cathodic protection, corrosion control, anticipating and responding to water main breaks swiftly and effectively, sewer cleaning, sewer flushing, addressing collapses, and any regulatory response related to contamination and unlawful sewage discharges. Additionally, the association must collect and save adequate funding in preparation for any of these potentially catastrophic events. 3, when the water department is eventually called to help with a problem, there is no guarantee that we will be able to access the private infrastructure. Our trucks and service equipment require certain height and width clearances, and physical constraints like lock gates or low overhangs may prevent PWD from reaching the problem quickly. We recognize the BIA's desire to connect multi-unit developments to the city's water and sewer infrastructure with one connection. For the reasons stated, it is our position that this is bad public policy, which experience shows harms future property owners. The Water Department respectfully requests that this bill be held in committee. Alternatively, we have worked with BIA on a proposed amendment, which is before the committee. We would like to work with BIA and other stakeholders to further refine this proposed amendment. This will better serve our customers now and into the future. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
My name is James Moransky. I'm the president of the Building Industry Association of Philadelphia. I would like to thank Councilman Johnson and the members of the committee for the opportunity to testify today in support of Bill 180554, which was introduced by the chairman on behalf of Council President and would allow for private infrastructure and water sewer infrastructure to be installed by a developer on private property and owned and maintained by a condominium or planned community. I prepared a long testimony, but considering that we have an amendment on the table and it is Friday afternoon and I'm sure everybody would like to move on, we have proposed back to the Water Department that we would agree to the amendment with the agreement that there'd be a working group developed over the summer, that this would come out of committee, and then we would create a working group over the summer to come up with a set of regulations to make sure that this mandate and this bill would be properly executed.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions from members of the committee? Councilman Alan Tottenberger.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very, very, very much. And I'm very interested in Mr. Moransky, your definition of a working committee. I mean, would it be formalized in the sense that we would all know who these individuals are, and would they meet on a regular basis?
Yes, I would assume that would be members of the development community and members of the Water Department that would work together. So we would have a small group that we would come together with the Water Department and work to make sure that these regulations to what is an approved system, because of the wording in the amendment is that being approved by the Water Department. So we would work together to make sure that these issues that the Water Department has are clear and it serves their purposes as well as serving the purposes of the development community.
And that would be kind of an ongoing dialogue or meeting as needed?
Yes, I would think that we would meet continually, maybe 2 or 3 times over the summer, initial meeting to lay out ideas on both sides and then reconvene and hopefully develop a set of regulations to allow this private infrastructure to take place.
Very good. I like that quite a bit. I mean, I think that's just a good thing for government to do. Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
If I may, I've always availed myself and my department has availed ourselves to the development community and has always worked to try to work things out with them. And but I think it would be best if we covered an amendment as opposed to working on regulations.
I think, dialogue is always a very, very good thing, and an ongoing dialogue. We can learn from each other, I just think, and particularly as things develop and problems may occur that maybe we didn't even think about at this very moment, or technology changes. But having, in fact, a working committee that continues to meet on the subject, I think can be very valuable for both sides.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, Chairman, thank you.
You're welcome. Councilman Alan Down.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Good afternoon. I had just a suggestion to try to bring the two of you together a little closer maybe. And it sounds like, Commissioner, you're concerned about what happens after the installation, which is the maintenance and all the issues that occur after these are installed in 10, 20, 30 years from now. And I don't know that most condominiums have a maintenance program for this. So I have a little knowledge about that. So here's my suggestion. I would say maybe you allow the builders and developers to do their installs the way they're, the way they're suggesting they want to do them. The water department certifies it, and then the water department takes over the maintenance at a cost to the condo association. Most condo associations would be happy to pay that cost, because I don't know who else does it. I mean, I'm involved with a lot of buildings. I don't know any building that really maintains these systems the way they should be. So I like the idea of the water department maintaining it, but I like the idea of the builders, developers installing it with the water department's approval of that install. Just as a suggestion when you meet in the summer. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If I may respond. So one of the reasons that we're leery to take over maintenance of private infrastructure is typically it's not installed to our standards, for one, so it's not going to last a long time like we built it to last. But the other issue is access issues. So for instance, sewer typical right-of-way is 50 feet, so we can get the backhoe in there, we can do the repairs. Sewers are deeper. When the developments that I've seen that come across our table, a lot of times it's inside a private area. Access is a problem. You can't get a backhoe back there sometimes because you have a unit above the driveway. So those are some of the concerns if we were to do that. Typically with private infrastructure, when it comes across us because there's an issue, we'll hire a private plumber to do the repairs, and then, as I think I stated, we distribute the cost to the HOA or whomever.
Maybe if you had some sort of regulation where you approved of the installation, let them do the install, you approve the installation, you approve of the access, and then you take on the maintenance for a fee. Not for free, but for a fee, so we make sure these are being maintained. Just a thought that I wanted to give you.
If I may address that, currently now there's several different departments within the water department, one of which being stormwater. And the stormwater department, the way they really function is that the developer takes on the private infrastructure. So when a parcel's over 15,000 square feet and has earth disturbance that creates mandatory stormwater management, the developer takes on the role of the contractor under PWD's purview. We design a system that's approved to their standards, we build it, we construct it, we pay for it, we maintain it. There's operational funds set aside, as well as long-term maintenance funds that are in reserves to handle this. We sign an O&M agreement, operations and maintenance agreement, with the water department saying that we will maintain it per these set of regulations. And that all happens now without the water department actually handling the management. So we don't see a reason why this can't be handled the same way with sewer and water distribution. So, and you do have a great point where historically, there haven't been a large number of contractors out there to maintain these type of systems. But with the growth of stormwater management and green infrastructure, the way we've seen it grow, these contractors have now started to come about more and more because we need them to maintain the green water infrastructure systems. So these same contractors can maintain sewer and water. And there's belief within the development community that we can do things at a lower cost than what a large public agency can do it. So we would like the opportunity to maintain our own systems. And with the condominium, in that case, a lot of times, if you have just a large building coming out of the ground, there's really no private infrastructure that takes place. It's really just a lateral that goes to the street, and that typically would fall to, and directly connect. What we're talking about here is really more like a garden-style apartment complex or townhome complex that has a shared drive aisle and an area in the center where the private infrastructure could be maintained. And we understand the water department's point of view, but and in the other sheet that I had included in the testimony was the domino effect of all the residual effects and all the collateral damage that occurs from direct connections with street openings and maintenance issues and everything else. I can run through the punch list if you like. What we would like to see, though, is to see the amendment with the bill with the amendment in place come out of committee, and then allow us to work on it together over the summer.
So are you saying that if you build 50 homes in a development and you sell all 50 homes, you still continue to maintain the systems 10 years later?
Yes. Yes. So right now, if you have a development, and a lot of these now are larger parcels where the parcel might be 2 or 3 acres, but there's only 200 foot of frontage along the street. There is no private sewer or private water mains running back to the development. So the developer then builds the infrastructure for the project. Okay, and that is still permitted if there's no street frontage. But the units that then attach to the street or directly fronted on the street are now required to directly connect to the street. So we build these, and in our budgets, we have now these plans get recorded. You get utility easements on the plans. The plan community documents get recorded with OPA. So the plans go there. In there is a utility plan. As well, we also have a budget for operations, and just like you do for maintaining exteriors and everything, there's a reserves budget in there for maintenance of the system and long-term care and eventual replacement.
So you're pre-funding the maintenance, basically?
Correct.
And how long is that pre-funding for?
It's continual. So it's every month when they pay an HOA fee.
10 years, 20 years, 30 years? Forever?
Forever, right?
Forever, correct.
How does somebody give you an estimate on a forever maintenance program?
You really look at it as what yearly maintenance costs, and then you have long-term replacement costs, the same way you do when you do a condo budget or an HOA budget. You look at a set of stairs and you say, okay, the stairs is costs $10,000 and it has a useful life of 20 years. You then divide that up, create a maintenance replacement budget. You create reserves for replacement of that system. So you know what the system costs to build, you know what's going to cost to replace. You then divide that up by the useful life. And if something happens, everybody is now, it's a formalized system where everybody that purchases, we do have issues from units built 100 years ago that didn't have this type of documentation, okay? And now there's this major gray area where somebody not even aware, because there's nothing on the deed. There's no easement on the deed, there's no documentation. So when the time comes, they don't know that they're connected to a private sewer. Times have changed and there's now a system in place for this. So it's very regimented when we go to design and build a project like this.
Who are some of the companies that do this forever maintenance?
Oh, Ritter and Ruggiero and Plant has a stormwater division that will do maintenance. Hubner, JF Hubner is a contractor. They install infrastructure systems and do it. Santos, so I could probably name 5 to 10 that build infrastructure systems and then also maintain.
So if you build 50 homes, do you write them a check at the closing that takes care of this forever maintenance, one check?
No, it's the same
The
way
association
it is
pays
with
it every year?
association fees. So if they're paying $200 a month for an association fee, X number of dollars of that $200 a month goes into reserves for replacements. And as you know, with some projects, you have reserves for replacement for things that are supposed to last 10 years and they might last 20. It's a moving budget, but the funds are there. And if at any point there's a shortfall in funds, there's an assessment would happen to all the owners of the
So it's
project.
part of the condo budget on an annual basis?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If I may add one little kink, though, my understanding that condo associations can dissolve themselves if they have the vote. So it's not exactly foolproof, and there are concerns. I mean, I don't know why one would do that, but I think it's better if we can work on the amendment to address some of the standards to be met for the installation, the materials, how the piping is installed to better preserve and not have the problems down the road. And the other thing I can say is that, yes, as Mr. Moransky stated, basically the majority of the problems that we're seeing today, I mean, the last 2 weeks actually have been private sewer problems at a few places in the city. But every now and again, we do have an issue with something built in the last 5 years. And so we deal with those. And those are with O&Ms for the GSI, Green Stormwater Infrastructure, but also other issues have come up. So it's not just something, it's not all of it is not kicking the can down the road. But I do know that I think we've made some improvements on our working relationship. And you know, again, I do like working toward our mutual goal is to provide the best quality to those that purchase these homes, and I care about the generations down the road.
I think a major point that may resonate is that, you know, so many times we're talking about who's paying for this. Is the city paying for this, or the developer paying for this? This is a case here where the development community is sitting in front of you asking for the permission to pay for our own systems. Who's going to handle the long-term maintenance expense? We are. The development community is, the buyers are. We're taking that off of the city's plate versus something that we're saying if they handle the maintenance, that becomes a long-term liability for the city versus for the developer and for the homeowner. So we're actually sitting here requesting to take responsibility for the long-term cost of the system.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Al Tottenberger?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Moransky, thank you for your expert testimony, because you, coming from the industry, I think is very, very helpful to all concerned. One, I think you've already answered, but I just want to say it again because I heard it properly. Your estimates of paying for this is perpetual, ongoing, forever.
Correct.
Is that memorialized in the ordinance itself? Does it say that, or is that sort of it doesn't say that?
Not in this ordinance. The ordinance is to allow us to do it.
Will allow you to.
Will allow us to build the systems and maintain the systems.
Okay.
Okay. That's what the ordinance is for. There's a regulation in the Water Department that's been there for a long time that hasn't been enforced, that said any street-facing home must directly connect to the street. So this is newly being enforced, and that is what the emphasis of the bill was, to come forward and put this, to allow us to build these with private infrastructure. So what we don't have, what we have here is a bill that's proposing that we're allowed to do that, and an amendment saying that the Water Department has to approve it. I think that is a sufficient bill to pass and bring out a committee to then allow us to then go back and set the regulations on both sides.
Gotcha.
And I think that sets a precedent that, okay, we're approving this. We have to approve what the builders have to do, and we have to determine what the Water Department is going to approve.
And
it gives us 2 to 3 months to work it out. If we can't work it out, then maybe we're back here again when this comes for final passage. But the hope is that we can sit together and work this out over the summer.
Okay, that sounds very good to me, because it has to be memorialized. You saying this, I saying this, and in 40 years, everybody at the table is different.
Correct. I would imagine that the regulations that we'll meet over the summer is saying that the only way you can build private infrastructure is if your plan is recorded with OPA. And you must have reserves for replacement. There must be adequate access to the property. Items like this that we'll work with back and forth to develop a set of criteria that makes this a reality.
Mr. Moransky, thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. So according to the amendment, can you clarify, Ms. Deborah McCarthy, this amendment and how you feel about the amendment? I mean, obviously, I know we came to some level of agreement, but just elaborate on the amendment, please.
So we've proposed the amendment, and we think it actually can be further refined to include the installation of the water main, private water main, and private sewer to meet department standards, at least in materials and installation. Maybe, we recognize that a right-of-way of 50 feet for this private sewer is not, that's just going to be problematic, and one of the issues that is going to drive up costs and reduce the developable land on that property. But, so I think that's something that we would like to work out through the summer, through the amendment.
Good.
Which will trump regulations.
That's like a check and balance.
Yes.
And it still gives the city some power to make sure the standards are, you don't have folks coming in roughshod, just building half-cocked projects, and there's no level of standards to hold folks accountable.
Right, and for those future generations, they'll have something that hopefully lasts a long time, and they won't have to spend as much money. But I do like the fact that that requiring the maintenance, a fund for maintenance by the condo or HOA, homeowners association.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to testify on this bill? This concludes the public hearing on bill number 180554, We will now briefly recess into a public meeting to consider the action to be taken on the bill. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on the amendment to Bill number 180554.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I offer amendment to Bill number 180554. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee. I move that the amendment of the Bill number 180554 be approved.
Second.
Seconded.
It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to Bill number 180554 be approved. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. And the motion carries, and the amendment to Bill number 180554 has been approved. The chair recognizes Councilman Mark Squilla for a motion on Bill number 180554 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the Bill number 180554 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and to further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading for the next council session.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that Bill number 180554 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Bill number 180554 as amended be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, with a request that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading at the next session of council. This concludes the business of this committee. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.